I bet you've had something like that happen to you. You saw something and you wanted to write down how it made you feel. If that's true, then you're a writer. And if you saw something and you felt more like making a picture about it, then you're more a visual artist, maybe. And if you just wanted to tell someone all about it, then maybe you're a storyteller or perhaps an actor. But pretty well everyone does feel that they want to make something sometime. And that is where art comes from. Writing the introduction to the tour, I'm trying to explain the concept of sculpture. The way I described it, the way I defined it for children was, well, sculpture is art that you can walk around. Whereas I think when children think of the word art, they almost always think of paintings. And so they think of things that are laid flat against a wall. Whereas sculpture is something that's out in the middle of the room or in the middle of a garden or a space, and you can actually walk around it and see it from different angles.
So, what's he doing, this guy?
Drumming on a drum.
Yeah. And what kind of a drum is it?
Like kind of a boron.
Like a kind of a boron, yeah? Or I thought also, or maybe it's like a tambourine, but a tambourine you just shake, don't you? You don't actually bang on it.
It looks a bit like a stick and then just a plate or something.
Yeah, a plate. You think
Yeah,
it's a plate?
just a plate.
And what's he made of, this guy?
Stone.
Is he stone? Or is he bronze? I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know. Is it?
Well, I don't know. What do you think? Do you like him?
Yeah.
Yeah?
He's sort of cool.
He's sort of cool.
Yeah. He's really long legs.
He's really long. He's awfully thin. Well, I think he looks like he's leading a parade or something. He's got this. It's a very, very lively sort of piece. This rabbit looks as if he's actually moving, even though, of course, he's completely stable. It's full of life, full of movement, and full of joy. It really reminds me of parades and marching bands. I like the way it's placed where it is, also at the entrance to the museum, because it's kind of alluring and enticing, and it's as if it's inviting you into the museum. And I love also the way it creates a lovely silhouette against the sky. Depending on the weather, you can get various kinds of silhouette of that piece, depending whether it's a cloudy sky or a clear sky, or also depending on which angle you look at it from. It's one of those pieces that works very well in the round. You can go right around it and get different perspectives on it. And the fact that it's so high up as well, I like that about it, because you're craning up to look at it, and you feel somehow you're being drawn by this creature. It reminds me somehow of something like Stonehenge or the Forum. It has this sort of sense of being like a ruin, but of course it's not at all ruinous. It's extremely carefully made, and the corners are all right angles. If you walk through and in between the pillars, as that piece really invites you to come right into the artwork, you get a sense of it, this kind of architectural sense. For a child, that experience would be even stronger, because they're smaller, they're shorter than the pillars. So for us walking through it, it has one kind of feeling, but I would think for a child you would feel quite dominated by these tall pillars.
And so I think they really were aware of the dramatic, sort of theatrical quality that the piece had as they walked in and out among them. There were also little holes at various intervals on the surface of the pillars, and the children really enjoyed peeping into the holes and seeing what they could see inside.
I think they look particularly nice in the rain because they sort of
Very shiny.
yeah.
See the one over there, if you look at the top, it's sort of hard to see, but it's sort of very, looks like it's very clean. It's very,
Clean.
very shiny.
Clean and shiny.
They're sort of set up in a group.
Yeah.
So there's two there, and then there's three in a line there, and there's four sort of in a line there, and that one's like a two.
So they're.
It's
called Untitled. Isn't that a good name?
yeah.
Untitled.
Is it called that, or is it just Untitled?
I think
Well, that's the puzzle, isn't it? We don't know.
Yes, it is a bit like a maze, isn't it? It's like a big stone maze. And Olivia was remarking how the stones had been set out in various groupings, and they were wondering were they meant to be sort of were they loners, or were they parts of a family, or what were they? To me, the most striking thing about those stones is the way they're cut to look like diamonds, and yet they're made of a completely undiamond-like material. But the planes and the angles, I think, are very beautiful, and especially in the rain. I think those stones responded especially well to the rain. They look fantastic in the rain.
Well, who's your woman?
Eve.
Eve. Who's Eve? Adam's wife. Right, good. And what's she doing? An apple.
An apple in her hand.
Do you think it's an apple?
Yeah, it's an apple from the tree.
The tree.
Yeah, from the tree, the forbidden tree.
Story.
Yeah.
Look at the size of it, though. Have you ever seen an apple so big that it's bigger than the hand that's holding it? I think it looks more like a football. And she's not wearing any clothes, is she? Statues often don't have clothes. Isn't that right? You often see, yeah. But I think she looks pretty shady. Exactly. Very good word, Nuala. Yeah, exactly.
This is one of my favourite pieces, actually, the Eve, because she's a really feisty-looking, rather aggressive-looking sort of Eve, and she's sticking out her hand, and she's got this great big football-sized apple on it, and it's really in your face. I think it's a very amusing isn't quite the right word. It's a sort of an engaging sort of a piece, and I suppose it is amusing because it makes me smile. Every time I see it, I want to get to know this lady. You know, I think she'd be fun.
Look at the way this is. How on earth does it not fall down? Look, it's on tippy toes. Look, I don't know how it doesn't fall over.
Oh, that looks like that looks like a broken foot.
A broken foot?
Yeah, look
Look here,
Yeah.
it goes into the ground.
Yeah.
Look there.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen the Spar ad? Like, and it's like all their products, and then they just come up and it's like a circle, and nothing's holding up the top bit of the circle. It's because it's all kind of compacting together so that it holds. So maybe that's why it might be really close together.
That's what keeps it up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Beneath the what?
beneath the boat.
The bow.
That's a really amazing piece. I think it's the scale is so is what makes this piece so exciting. There's an enormous piece of reaching up into the sky, and you have to crane your neck to see the tip of it. And I don't understand the physics of it, because it does look very precarious, and yet it feels extremely sturdy and strong. And it reminds me of gantries and cranes and shipyards, and very kind of, I suppose, masculine environment, a very kind of industrial environment with the screws and the rivets. Again, a bit like the limestones, you can walk through the sculpture. Because there are two pieces. There's a smaller piece and then there's a larger piece, and you can actually go right into the sculpture. So you feel very close, but you feel almost part of the artwork.
Hi. Joshua!
This is a very extraordinary piece because it looks like nothing and it looks like lots of things. It looks like a stack of plates from one angle. It looks like a sou'wester. It looks like a shell. It looks like a foot from one angle. One of the children remarked that the piece on the right hand side, if you're looking at it from the front, looks a bit like a sort of a flask or something that you put a potion in. I suppose you can interpret it in very many ways, or you can look at it in many ways, and again, it's one of those pieces that when you walk around it, the perspective changes and what it looks like. It's a very strange piece, and also it's hollow, or it's partly hollow, so you can talk into it or you can shout into it, as one of the children did. Now this piece, again, this is another one you've got to really strain to look up at. You've got to crane your neck to look up at it. And you're looking up at these letters, and they seem to be random letters when you look at it first. So I don't like to tell the children what the letters say. I let them try and find the words. So they kind of run around, and it's a bit like doing a puzzle, solving a puzzle. And then when they've got the letters and they've got these strange words that it's made of, it still doesn't make a lot of sense. And so then I explained to them, well, actually, it's meant to be a kind of anagram. It's not a completely accurate anagram, but it's close. It's a para-anagram. So it's a very playful piece. And sometimes, depending on how the sun is striking it, it can cast shadows on the ground, and you can see the letters in silhouette on the ground as well, which is very interesting.
Now, what do you think this is?
That's like a grave.
A grave, yeah. It looks like a gravestone, yeah.
Maybe it's someone. It's an artist maybe, and
Yeah.
maybe this is how long he did his artwork for.
Oh, that's interesting. Maybe it's how long the artist did his artwork for. Yeah.
Maybe. It has a lot of shamrocks around it, and
Yeah.
then mushrooms,
Yeah.
and like his name was Ireland.
So you think
I
you think maybe it's meant to be Ireland itself?
I don't know.
Yeah, it does sound a bit like that, doesn't it? As if it's maybe the country. Oh, what's that? Is that some kind of,
Booklet.
is that a script? Is that is that Owen? You know that script, that old script? Is that what it is? I can't see it very clearly. Is it like a long line with little lines across it? That's Owen's script. That's the old script that they used to use on gravestones in ancient Ireland before they had letters the way we have today. So it's probably...
So maybe it's
that
just
would be-
like
It reminds me of pet graveyards, or pet graves that you see maybe in big old houses. You see this little, sometimes they have a little pet graveyard, and their old cats and dogs and ponies have been buried in the grounds. So it does look like a gravestone set into the ground. It looks like the old-fashioned kind of gravestone, but it obviously isn't of a real person. I think the artist's idea was that he was burying his alter ego, and apparently there was a little ceremony at the time when the gravestone was set into the ground. But it's very mysterious, and the children really engaged with it. They talked for quite a long time about what it meant to them and what it might be, and they really puzzled over it. I thought that was interesting how it captured their imagination. I think that they're meant to be the four winds. I imagine they're meant to be the four winds, but they look like enormous bedraggled crows.
And again, in the rain, they look even more bedraggled. But you don't need rain for those to look bedraggled. They really do look as if they're broken winged. They also reminded me a bit of the Children of Lir, except that the Children of Lir would be white because they were swans. But they did have that look about them, the way they were hunched around in a circle. I found those slightly spooky, but also somehow very, well, kind of attractive, I suppose. I was quite drawn to them. Dot, dot, dot at the bottom, and dot, dot, dot at the top. And they're, no, not commas.
No.
Brackets, yeah. And what about the actual words? Water and sand, plus sticks and stones. What does that refer to, do you think?
Stones.
Sticks and stones. Do you know the rhyme?
Six stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt.
But names will never hurt me. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me. If you put water and sand and sticks and stones together, what might you get?
House.
A house! Yeah, exactly. I think it's like building, isn't it? So maybe it's to do with the building. I don't know what it is. It's very mysterious. That is the piece of art that I find most baffling in the whole place. You have these words and you have to, well, I don't know what. I suppose they are words that have to do with building, water and sand. But they're also set out like a mathematical formula. I don't know what that's all about. And then there are two of them, and they're not mirror images of each other, they're exact replicas of each other. Yeah, I find that very puzzling. And every time I go through the archway now, I stop and look and see if I can think some more about what it is they're hinting at. I'm sure those colonnades are really designed for sunshine. They really belong to, they come from hot countries where people need to be shaded from the sun. But in fact in Ireland they have another purpose, which is to allow you to get around the building without having to get your feet wet. But it's a very beautiful space, I think, the courtyard. So in a way the building itself is also a kind of an enormous sculpture, isn't it? It's an enormous work of art, a big work of art. And again, it's one that you can walk right into and walk around. And sometimes they use the very centre of the courtyard for a piece of art that's a visiting piece of art, let's say. The gardens struck me as also like a piece of sculpture. They're very perfect and very beautiful. And especially when you look at the garden from inside the house and you look down, there's kind of parterre effect that you get. They almost look like they're not made of natural objects at all. They look as if they've been, they almost look like a painting or a picture book.
The kind of circle.
Reminds me of Alice in Wonderland, actually.
Yeah.
Everything here reminds me of Alice in Wonderland.
Really? Yeah.
The rabbit and
The what?
the rabbit.
The rabbit, oh yes, and the garden. Yeah.